What up, y'all? This is Dr. Vic, and you are here on the Mindful Experiment. Excited to have you on as this week I'm coming at you talking all about karma. That's right. This is a word that I've heard many times, and karma's a you know what, and karma's going to come and get you, or XYZ. And I was always interested because when I remember being a teenager, there was times where if I did something wrong, may have hurt someone or said something or whatever it may be, they'd always be like, "Oh, karma's going to come back and bite you in the you know what." And I was always like, "But man, but if I didn't have a negative intention to do harm, then why would it all of a sudden still come at me?" And I started to question, I started to look at things, and I was like, man, it just doesn't make sense. And when I got into the spiritual aspects of things, understanding spiritual laws and all these other things, people would talk about how, it's your karma. You have to burn off your karma, and karma's there. You're in this life because of your karma, and all these other things. And I kind of was like, that doesn't make sense either, because there's still no choice, right? There's no choice. Well, you can't have the freedom, or you can't go to higher levels of your spiritual ascension unless you burn off all your karma, or your karma is what keeps you prison on earth and coming back as a human and incarnating. I mean, there's a lot of things out there. And for me, it was one of the things where I'm like, it doesn't add up. There's something missing. My gut kept telling me, my gut kept saying, it just doesn't sound right. There's something called free will, then it changes the whole game. If free will is not true, then it doesn't. Then what you're telling me is a reality. It is a truth. Now, for those who are listening, if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably like, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" Just hold with me. Listen to this podcast. I promise you, I'm going to tie it all together. And so it's one of the things where, when you're looking at your life, right? Karma, I wrote this in my book. I was really looking at seeing what karma really meant. I even looked at the word sin because, we're all sinners. I can't, some of the things being Italian Roman Catholic is just hard to get out of your system sometimes. But when I started looking at, karma, the word itself, what does it mean? The Sanskrit meaning of it. And it meant action, right? And I started looking and I started studying that. I go, that makes sense to me. Now, why does it make sense? Let me go deeper. And I started to understand that karma really is the action or the choices that you made in the past that has led you to where you are now, right? It is basically looking at your life in the rearview mirror to understand where you are in the present. And it also gives you the power to burn off your karma, which means you can make different choices now in the present to shift and change your reality into the future. And that's how you can redirect your life in any way, shape, or form. You are not held bound by anything. So these fabrics of people saying, well, karma is this or karma is that, it's all lies. There's no real factual truth except taking the word for what it is. Now, why would I be so passionate about this? Because you have to understand that words have a vibrational frequency. There are healing techniques that I know and use on some patients or things where I need to figure out, is this good for them or that good for them? I can just put a word on it and it will change to let me know if they need it or don't. Sounds crazy, but there are studies that came out and showed this. The water experiment by, I'm going to mess up his name right now, Masaru Emoto, he did, or Emoto Marasaru, but anyhow, he did a study on just words on water, flash froze it, looked at the structure of the water, and saw that love was high crystallized hexagonal form, where negative was chaos, non-unorganized form. And so or hate, fear, negative lower vibrations, this kind of showed that there is actually a game of vibration. There's actually a game of frequency. There's many books I've read on this in different formats and ways to test, because I love learning material and learning how to apply, because life is just a big game to me. And one of the things is there is those frequencies. So words mean something. So if we define a word and put a definition behind it, how you use it, whether you know that definition or not, sets the reality in term for how it's going to be. And so if karma is action and an accumulation of actions from your past to dictate to where you are today, well, then why can't you just change your actions and your thoughts and your processes to change your future to what you want it to be? Burning off your karma. You're changing your direction. you're going a whole different route. You're creating your reality. It's the same thing as being called a sinner. Religions, whether if you're a Christian, Catholic, Protestant, whatever religion that uses the word sin, you have to understand what sin really means. Okay, from the Catholic world, I believe there's a lot of control. There's a lot of history to show that. But long story short, well, as soon as you're born, you're a sinner. As soon as you're born, you're this original sin. Well, original sin, if we look at it from the word sin, right, going back to what the word means, I talk all about this if you guys are interested in learning more in my book called Rediscover Your Greatness. Great way to get access to this information, but because I go way deeper. But the thing is, sin, if you look where it comes from the world of archery. And when you take an arrow to shoot, and if you don't hit the mark, you created a sin. Sin is being off your mark. So now we have two words, right? Karma, accumulation of actions that have led you to today, and sin, shooting the mark, being off course from your path. Now, well, you say, well, what is your path? Well, your path is your spiritual journey. Your path is what you choose. Yes, is there a spiritual blueprint? Is there a blueprint that you created with other beings and other aspects, either ascension or celestial or here on earth? You've created a blueprint to an experience of what you want to create based on your free will. Now, if you take that free will and you look at it and say, okay, great, I have free will. I got to choose this life. Well, you also get to choose this life in this life to have an experience, but you can never go outside the blueprint. So unless it was part of the plan, right? Because nothing in the world is a coincidence. Everything's there for a purpose. Everything is there for a purpose. And when you start to see this, then you start to see the game a little more. You start to open your eyes. And actually, I say wake up more, because all of a sudden you start to see things and go, wait a minute, hold on here. There's something to this. And you start to see the bigger picture. So now understand that karma is not a prison sentence. It's nothing of that nature at all. It's just learning how to choose differently. When I was in high school, getting into college, I was tired of the drama that I was seeing in my life. It was just so much drama all the time, and it was very infuriating because I was like, what am I doing to create this? And I had a great buddy of mine before he passed always tell me, you attract it. You choose and look for karma. And I was like, dude, stop saying that. And when someone says something to you that really annoys you, that is the thing you're repressing within that they're exposing you to. And that's why you have such a huge emotional charge. And the bigger the emotional charge, the bigger the response that's going to be. And so one day after, I didn't see him all the time because I was away at school. But when I did see him, I would always tell him, look, man, look at all the things that are different in my life. Look how drama is starting to shift. I go, and he's like, well, what are you doing differently? And I'd be like, well, I'm staying away from it. I've cut people out of my life. I'm minimizing this. I'm trying to stay away from that. I go, I'm still learning. I'm not perfect at it. But he would even say, he goes, I've noticed that you haven't been going so much with drama as much anymore in your life. Your life is getting a little bit calmer. And I'm trying to keep that going somehow. And it was one of the things where that's where the epiphany for me, and I didn't know it at the moment. It was about a couple of years after his death, when one day I was just really reflecting on him, missing him and just our conversations and just his energy of a being. And I remember one time I was just thinking about that conversation, and I was thinking about karma. And then I was like, wait a minute, that makes perfect sense, right? Karma is the choices and actions that you've done in the past that creates your reality today. Well, if that's true, then what he was teaching me was that, because he was saying that based on what my choices were, this is why I was experiencing what I was experiencing. And until I made different choices in different realities, I would have saw a different experience. And the things sometimes that you're more hard programmed to in your mind, consciousness, mindset, and all that, your conditioning, your upbringing, all those things, those are going to be conditioned within and those are harder to break out. So there were some things in my life that were like, bam, got it, done, no more. But then there were some things in my life that I couldn't figure out 5-6 years later why it was still showing up. And I realized it was me and my choices that I was making and giving energy to, the words I was choosing, and so much more. I was creating so many sins, it was unreal. And I had to learn how to break away from that. And so karma, when I shifted my direction of what I was doing, just like I've shared on this podcast before, I wrote it in my book, I've talked about it many times, where when I went bankrupt, there was what was bankruptcy? Well, after about 6 months to a year later, when I started reflecting back on why that all got created, I really took some time to really let that all sink in. I started to see the actions and the choices and the energy of the emotions I had tied to that was creating that reality. And so I made a promise to myself, I'll never let that happen again. And it's not that I would say, I'm never going to be back in this situation. But the reason why I know I won't be back in that situation, God willing, of course. But the reason why I say that is because I know from a mindset side why it was there. I know the actions and choices. I know the emotional charge I was putting to things. And when I started to disconnect from that and not put the charge there anymore, my reality started to change. These are some of the tricks and tips and all the fun stuff that I do when I do mindset coaching with people, is teaching you how to break through these patterns and be aware of them so that you can understand how to level your life and create a massive transformation. And we break through your karma. We burn your karma, as some people like to say. And so when you understand karma and when you understand sin, you really can drastically change your life, because sin, and there's things I teach and I've written in my book, Rediscover Your Graces. I'm not trying to sell this to you guys. I'm just telling you, if you want to learn more about this, if this is inspiring to you, go get the book. It's on Amazon. It's in the show note links. You can get access to it, audio, text. I think that's it. I don't have a video format of it. But long story short, you get access to it. And I talk a little bit more about how do you know when you're a sinner? How do you know when you're creating sins? What does the universe give you to teach you how to know that? And so much more. So check that stuff out. But at the end of the day, you are choosing every single day what your reality is going to be. How do I know this? Is because when I was in health, well, I am in health, but when I was in chiropractic school, I learned something called the wellness continuum. It was part of my certification program I completed right after school. And it was one of the things that I learned, that in health, you are either making choices. This is where I learned. This is where it was a full picture for me. This is all ties in, right? My friend, what he was sharing with me, me trying to understand karma a little bit and all the things I was learning. And then all of a sudden I learned the wellness continuum. And when I started to put it all together, I was like, holy shit, this is all the same thing. Because karma, health, right? Health is where you are today, is the accumulation of choices of what you made in your past that leads you to where you are in your health. And every single day, you're making a choice, either closer to wellness or closer to disease, closer to life or closer to death. It's just that simple. And so when you focus on making regular choices every single day on your health, a year, 3 years, 5 years down the road, you're going to have more health. If you choose more disease type things, then all of a sudden, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, same process, you're going to have more disease. It's just that simple, guys. So when you look at choices in your life, if you're not where you want to be, it's the choices you're making that are not allowing you to get there. And sometimes for the type A driver personalities like myself, who kept running in the walls, you'll understand that sometimes you think, well, I'm just checking off boxes. I'm going to do what he said. He said, I got to make my choices. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to focus on my career. I'm going to focus on this. And I'm just going to continue to do the work. But if you're in your mind just checking off boxes because you have to do this or you need to do this to get to that level, you're not going to get there, because emotionally the charge is not there. The generator of energy is not behind it. And that's a whole nother episode for you guys to dive into. But these are the things and the concepts and the ideas to understand that when you are making shifts and directions in your life, your karma, whatever you're doing, that where you are today is where you were before. And the only way to shift that, you start here. Thoughts create a reaction, which is the emotions, and that dictates where you're going to move towards. Where you put your focus and energy is what's going to create your reality. So you have to shift that direction, and you have to make the action steps then to do that. And when you process that thing, when you do it that way, man, 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, it doesn't. I don't like to put time frames on it, because there's something called divine time, and there's a divine timing of where you have to be in order then to create that reality or have that reality. And it's going to be, everyone's different. And so I don't like time frames. I'm a type A driver personality. I love time frames in the past of my life, and I've gotten away from them, and it de-stressed me like crazy. But what it also taught me in life is that when you're not putting these time frames on, you're allowing spirit, the universe, or whatever to give you what you need. But sometimes they happen faster than you think. I wouldn't say always. Some have taken longer for me. But the process is that it's going to be when it's ready for you to be. So I hope you guys found this insightful. Appreciate being on. Check out the show notes for some extra good stuff in there. And as always, I'm going to see you all next week. So have an amazing weekend, and check out the next episode this Friday coming up, as we have a great interview guest. And I'm looking forward to releasing that with y'all so that you guys can really have some deep insight. Let me know what you think. See you guys next week.